For generations, these were the official stories. Jefferson's family was pure. Millions of Americans had Cherokee blood. Warren Harding never fathered a secret child. Anna Anderson was the lost Russian princess. And the Washington family tree was settled. Then DNA testing became available. And one by one, every single one was destroyed. For nearly 2 centuries, the story was airtight. Thomas Jefferson's white descendants insisted the family line was unbroken, unsullied. His nephews, not the president, were named as the fathers of Sally Hemings' children. Madison Hemings, Sally's son, gave his account in 1873. He named Jefferson as his father. His words were dismissed. His family branded liars for more than 100 years. Monticello's tours, textbooks, and the official record all repeated the same denial. Then, in 1998, science struck. Dr. Eugene Foster's team ran a 12-marker Y chromosome test, comparing living male line descendants of Jefferson's Uncle Field, the Carr nephews, and Eston Hemings, Sally's youngest son. The results were not close. The Carr DNA showed no connection. The Jefferson male line and Eston Hemings, a perfect match at every marker. Statistically, the probability that this was a coincidence was less than 1 in 1,000. The Carr myth collapsed in a single publication. The pristine Jefferson line shattered by a few strands of DNA. The fallout was immediate and public. The Thomas Jefferson Foundation convened a review committee, then rewrote Monticello's official interpretation. By 2002, the site acknowledged the likely paternity. In 2018, Monticello opened a permanent Sally Hemings exhibit, placing her story and her children at the center of the narrative. The denial that shaped generations was officially over. For the Hemings family, vindication came at last. Madison's 1873 testimony, ignored for 125 years, now stands as fact. The descendants who carried the truth through whispers and warnings finally saw it confirmed, in museum walls, in textbooks, and in the record of American history. DNA did what no amount of pleading or protest could do. It forced the world to see what the powerful tried to hide. The powerless were right all along. In 1927, Britain published her story in serials and in the book The President's Daughter. She named Warren G. Harding, the sitting president, as the father of her child. The Harding family, Congress, and the press closed ranks. Britain was painted as a fantasist, a gold digger, a woman chasing scandal. Her lawsuit for paternity was thrown out. For 88 years, official history treated her as a footnote, her daughter as a rumor, not a relative. Then, in 2015, the silence broke. Ancestry DNA ran autosomal SNP tests on Britain's grandson and Harding's known relatives. The result? 3,950 centimorgans of shared DNA, a figure that sits in the unmistakable range for a parent-child or grandparent-grandchild relationship. The probability of a true biological link, 99.9%. The denial that protected Harding's reputation collapsed in a single lab report. The family tree that had erased Britain's daughter was forced open, the record rewritten. Britain died in 1991, never seeing her vindication. But the world that had called her a liar now faced the truth. In 2018, even Congress acknowledged the DNA evidence in discussions of presidential history. Science did what the courts and the press refused to do. It shattered the wall of denial and restored a mother's story to American memory. In 1887, a pedigree chart hung in the halls of Mount Vernon, tracing George Washington's family tree with the confidence of Scripture. Names inked in bold, lines drawn with authority, each branch anointed by paperwork, each omission a silent verdict. Betty Lewis, Washington's own sister, and her descendants were left off the chart. They lacked the documents. Their claims, dismissed for over a century, were treated as family folklore, unworthy of official recognition. The National Park Service, genealogical societies, and even textbooks reinforced the exclusion. The record was closed. Then came the lab results. In 2022, forensic scientists extracted mitochondrial DNA from a tooth of Betty Lewis, recovered from a 19th century burial. They sequenced the sample, mapped it to haplogroup H1A, and compared it to living descendants. The match was undeniable, 99.7% confidence. The supposed outsiders carried the same maternal signature as Washington's sister. The lines on the pedigree chart were wrong. The people without paperwork, the ones erased by generations of gatekeeping, were the true genetic kin. In spring 2023, the National Park Service rewrote the narrative. The Mount Vernon exhibit was updated. A new plaque named the Lewis line as authentic, and the old pedigree was quietly retired. For the first time, Betty Lewis and her descendants took their place in the official story. The irony was complete. The branch sanctified by records was invalidated, while the branch dismissed as legend was vindicated by science. In the end, DNA forced the keepers of history to admit what they had denied for over 100 years. The powerless, once again, were right all along. Across the South, a familiar story took root in family lore, the tale of a Cherokee princess ancestor. For decades, it was passed down in handwritten notes, family Bibles, and whispered at reunions. The story offered a sense of pride, a brush with royalty, and for some, a way to explain away ambiguous heritage. During the Jim Crow era, as racial boundaries hardened and laws threatened livelihoods, the myth became more than a curiosity. It was a shield. For white families with uncertain ancestry, claiming a Cherokee princess provided a socially acceptable alternative to acknowledging African roots. The story protected reputations and preserved status in a society obsessed with bloodlines. By 1902, the legend had become so widespread that North Carolina pamphlets listed dozens of supposed Cherokee princesses. Local newspapers printed these claims as fact, and as families moved west, the story followed, woven into the fabric of American identity. The Cherokee Nation, meanwhile, watched its history rewritten by outsiders. Tribal historians and elders insisted there were never Cherokee princesses. No such title existed in Cherokee society. Their records, council minutes, and oral traditions told a different story, one of removal, survival, and endurance. Still, the myth persisted, too useful to abandon. The arrival of DNA testing changed everything. Millions sent in saliva samples, hoping for confirmation. The results were stark. Ancestry DNA's 2020 data showed only 1.7% of Southern testers had any measurable Native American ancestry. For most, there was no Cherokee DNA at all. The legend collapsed under the weight of numbers. Geneticists saw a clear pattern. The story had been systematically false. In 2022, the Cherokee Nation publicly repudiated the myth, warning that it erased real Cherokee history and fueled cultural appropriation. False claims drowned out the voices of actual Cherokee families fighting for recognition and rights. State historical markers were revised. Genealogy societies urged evidence over folklore. For many, the reckoning was painful. For Cherokee historians, it was long overdue. DNA didn't just end a legend, it exposed denial and restored space for the truth. In the aftermath of revolution and massacre, the world clung to a fantasy that Grand Duchess Anastasia Romanov had survived. Anna Anderson, a Polish factory worker with a talent for mimicry and a haunted past, stepped into the void. By 1920, she was ensconced in European asylums, insisting she was the lost Romanov. American millionaires, émigré nobles, and a parade of lawyers and journalists poured fortunes and reputations into her cause. For decades, Anderson's supporters fought legal battles, staged press campaigns, and built a mythology around her, one that outlived her. stretching from Berlin to a quiet corner of Charlottesville, Virginia, where she died in 1984. But the story did not end with Anderson's burial. In 1994, a single hair, clipped from a hospital brush and cataloged for decades, became the final witness. Forensic scientists extracted mitochondrial DNA, the maternal genetic signature passed unchanged from mother to child. They sequenced the hypervariable regions, then compared Anderson's DNA to that of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, a direct maternal relative of the Romanovs. The result was absolute. Anderson's mtDNA did not match the Romanov line, not even close. The statistical probability of her being Anastasia, 0. Further tests in 2000 and 2004, using higher resolution methods and additional tissue samples, confirmed the verdict. Anderson's DNA belonged to a common European haplogroup, not the Romanovs' rare U4 lineage. Peer-reviewed results published in Nature left no room for doubt. The woman who mesmerized courts and captivated the public for 60 years was not a duchess, not a survivor, not a Romanov. She was Franziska Szankowska, a factory worker from Poland, her true identity buried beneath layers of trauma and invention. With the DNA evidence in hand, the Romanov Family Association issued a final statement. The case was closed, the legend destroyed. Museums and historians removed Anderson's name from the story of Anastasia. For the Romanov descendants, vindication came not in a courtroom, but in a laboratory. The fantasy that sustained generations collapsed in a few lines of genetic code. Science forced the world to let go of a cherished illusion. The truth, denied for decades, was now impossible to ignore. Official stories collapse, but denial lives on. DNA didn't just rewrite family trees, it shattered illusions protected by power. Science forced truth into daylight, vindicating voices silenced for generations. Today, every test holds the potential to destroy another myth. The establishment lies. The evidence never does. What do you think?